Hello, it's September the 9th, 2025, and this is the Bingham Boys. I'm Ron Yengich, and I'm here in our plush studio high atop the South Salt Lake Hotel with our engineer, Bill. And John, you're not here, but you're on the interwebs. Where are you?
I'm just like you. I'm on a rooftop myself, but I'm in Athens, Greece, with a little bit better view than what you have. I'm looking right at the Acropolis right now.
Ah, well, good for you. And I knew that, but I didn't know exactly where you are. So, how long are you going to be there? Or give us a little bit of give us a little history about John Saltas and the City Weekly trip to Greece, because that's what you're on, aren't you?
Yeah. We call it the annual City Weekly trip to Greece. 21 years in 2003 was the first time I came to Greece as a family. We brought 6 people. I quickly came back a couple of times in 2004 just because I had opportunity before and after the Olympics in Greece. And then in 2005. And from that point on, people kept saying, hey, can I come too? Can I come too? Because very simply, I'm an idiot. I do all the planning. And once you plan for 3 people or 5, you might as well plan for 20. So sure as shit, it grew into a big group. We started to call it the City Weekly Greece trip in 2010 was the first one. And then due to circumstance, didn't have another one until 2016. And we've had them every year since except the COVID year.
Have you ever lost anybody and not brought them back?
No, there's only been one. We haven't lost anybody. We have had people want to abandon their fellow travelers, but we've never lost anybody.
All right. Well, I've got questions from a number of different persons that we're going to get to in a minute. So, I mean, just some basic questions, because we're going to spend some time learning about Greece and about the Mediterranean while you're there on the podcast. We're going to change it up a little bit. And so with the questions I have and my own thoughts that I have, Bill and I have talked about some things. So what time of the day is it in Athens?
Right now we are at almost 8 o'clock in Athens.
8 o'clock p.m.
8 minutes to 8 evening time. Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful moonscape here. Have you been getting a big full moon in Utah? Because it's something else.
Well, I go to bed so early, I don't see the moon, but I'm told that it has been close to full. When I get up in the morning, it's already beginning to sink. So you're in Athens. That's where you start the trip. How long are you going to be in the city of democracy?
Yeah, this time I will be here for, we're doing 2 trips, so it's got 2 legs. The first trip starts now. We call it the Alpha Group, and we're here for 5 days. And then we move through other islands and stuff in Greece. Another group, this Alpha Group ends, and a Beta Group begins on about September 23rd. We continue on, and I can tell you more about them, but then we return to Greece for another Athens for another 4 or 5 days at the end of the trip. Myself, anyway. Not everybody does that.
Okay, and so... And you schedule all the hotels and get help them with flights and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The group began with just 5, then 7, then 10. This year we'll have over 70 people between the 2 groups, unique people. Some of them are doing either all of both trips or parts of both trips. Because in both trips, we visit Athens, for example, but some people may not want to see it twice in 30 days. So they do parts of one and part of another. Other people have been, I just had a glass of wine with some great people. This is their 3rd time just upstairs. Shout out to Bill and Cheryl Jesse. There's some Davis County people. This is their 3rd trip. And God, what great companions. But, people keep coming back.
So they're Davis County people. So is there non-alcoholic ouzo in Greece?
No. No. We do have people every year who are, imbibers or don't drink or for whatever reasons. I can't think of a good one when you're in Greece, but some people don't drink here. And ouzo is the flavor of the day. You know maybe that Americans were taught wrongly about ouzo. They think it's like tequila. You're supposed to shoot it and get drunk and pie-eyed, which really is just going to result in a headache. You want to sip ouzo. And you usually want to sip ouzo while sitting on a beach and eating octopus or, some kind of nice seafood. That's what it's really, really meant to be with. I've been here, lots of times. This is my 15 or 16th time to Athens, to Greece. And God, it's a rare day if I see a drunk person. And usually they're tourists. In fact, all the time they're tourists.
Well, that's what being a tourist is about, in part.
Well, I know that like the Greeks have this party culture and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, from a young age, they're sipping wine at the table and they don't abuse it. I mean, not to say that it doesn't ever happen, but primarily you just don't see it. They, make a glass of ouzo last for 2 hours because it's a conversation culture. Greeks talk to each other all the time, sometimes loudly, and it's disturbing to outsiders to see these people shouting at each other and then they hug. It's like they're not really mad. That's just their style because it's communication, and they are really, really well. They're the authorities on communication, aren't they? They wrote half of the words you studied in law school.
Oh no, I mean there's no doubt about it. I mean the Greek culture, the history of Greece is so important to the development of, mentioning my profession, the development of Anglo-American law, and of course you're really at the epicenter of where the dream about someplace like the real America began in the city-state of Athens. So how when you're there, do you lead the tour for people? Do you take them places and tell them about that, or do you have a tour guide, or how does that work?
I used to. Now now we pass it off to professional tour guides. I can get anybody where everything is, and I can say, "Oh, look, there's a pretty building there." But historically, the guides give you much more in-depth of an experience. I can take you to the Acropolis. You say, walk around, take a picture. The guide is going to say, the marble came from Mount Penteli, that the sculptor was so-and-so, that it took so many workers. Here's how they brought the marble. Look at this frieze up on the top. And, those are our marbles, but somehow they were absconded and stolen by the British government in the 1820s. Now they reside in the British Museum, and they tell you all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really good to have a professionally told experience. And people like that. It's really cool to learn. We never really quit learning. And by the way, learning is one thing, but being reminded is another. Lots of people are reminded when they're here that the values that we cherish at home are fragile because Greece has been trampled how many times. But people from around the world come and look at the Acropolis that I'm staring at, and with reverence and awe, because without this kind of a cultural experience, the Western civilization wouldn't have their core, wouldn't have their central belief, their ideas that ideals matter, people matter, humanity matters. It's all there.
Well, and what it is it goes back to an idea that, in large part, that the idea of being a citizen, and not necessarily a native citizen, but a citizen who has citizenship, meaning, in a sense, that they're part of the ship of state. They're not on the outside of it. They're not just working for it, but they're part of the ship of state, and they need to be heard so that the ship of state goes where the majority of people want it to go, and even with that, to listen to the other side. It's true, isn't it, at the Acropolis, that that's where a lot of the debates took place over important historical events that took place in Athens. Am I correct in that?
Somewhat. The Acropolis it sits atop. The Acropolis means like edge of the city or higher part of the city, and it's out of nowhere. There's a massive rock that sits in the center of Athens, and atop it, over centuries, Greek citizens built a series of temples. So the Acropolis, the Parthenon, the most beautiful maybe building of all time ever built, it's still studied. Like, how in the hell did they pull that off? Everything about it is magical. But the Acropolis itself was more of a place where the gods, resided.
Okay.
And so the debate took place, yes, but in the agora, that's the marketplace, There's the Greek agora. There's later the Romans came through, so there's a Roman agora also. The word agoraphobia comes from fear of open spaces. The agora was where they gathered. There's a place right near the Acropolis. It's right at the bottom of it, called, if you're Christian, and you may know it, it's called Mars Hill. That's where the Apostle Paul first preached to the gospel to the pagans of Athens and made his first conversions. There's a Philippopoulos Hill is right next to it. There's a big area there where the voting and stuff took place too, Ron. So right around the Acropolis is where the debate took place.
So it's interesting, too, now that I think about it, because the Agora, the marketplace, it wasn't just a marketplace for people to sell items. It also, in a sense, was a marketplace of ideas, where ideas were exchanged. And, both of us coming from immigrant families from the Mediterranean, yeah, we all do talk loud. We argue. Then we take a shot of wine or a shot of ouzo or Slivovitz or whatever, and then we move on. And it's something that, as you mentioned, that it's one of the problems we may be having here, because in America, because nobody wants to really talk about ideas anymore. They only want to go to the stall that they believe in or that they want to buy from. And it's interesting to reflect back on that. Some of the things I've read, it's like with the Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul goes there. There are some people that are not happy with him, and he talks about the unknown God that is honored there, I guess in the Parthenon, the statue that he sees, and by that is able to express his ideas openly in the Agora, I assume, so that there can be a discussion and a debate about what his belief is and what he thinks. And when you reflect on that, as I reflect on it from so far away, that's such a cool thing to think about, that people were willing to argue and debate openly without sticks and stones and knives, and that the Romans themselves took so much of that to Rome as they traversed the world after Alexander the Great and became the leading power in the world. That's where the Forum developed, as I understand it, and their own ability to debate openly, and the requirement that it was important that happened. It's so cool that you're within, probably a Donald Trump drive and 2 phony drop balls away from that.
Because he can't really hit a long ball, right? That's really what you're saying. So within his entire driving distance range, say 200 yards, I can be where Aristotle had his academy. I can be where Socrates, where his caves were, where he was imprisoned. I can be on a little pedestal in the Agora, and I'm going to get this wrong because I don't know the sequence of them, but Plato was here also. And in the Agora, there's a little stand that still stands today. It's like maybe 8 inches tall. And it's just a flat rock. It's a stone. It's a rock, and it's engraved. You want to speak? This is where the speaker's podium is, and anybody could get up there. It was the social media of its day, and you stood in line. You got up, and you got a chance to speak. And you were right. It was the place of community. Cultural ideas were embraced there. The Agora wasn't just trinkets and tchotchkes. There was a gymnasium. It was a 3-story tall building. There was temples there also, but it was a place. Marketplace of ideas. And, like the word blacklisted is something that's simple. It came from there because like the way that people would vote, you'd have a piece of pottery. And and some were charred black or painted black, and some were just broken pieces of, brown clay. And, you'd count the votes, one color against the other, or in some cases you could blackball somebody. You got one black thing, you're out. So it was a place where you could vote privately, no mail-in ballots. You went up and walked in and voted, And but I'm not going to sugarcoat it entirely because there were flaws in the ancient Greek system. But the center point, the ideals, were astoundingly sound, and people look to hear reverence. This city's packed, and it's September. It's packed with people who come here to see what is not the prettiest city in the world. You can go to beautiful places in the world, but they come here to see our roots, not just Greek roots, our roots. If Greeks did anything for culture, it was that they shared their ideas. And that is the great export of Greece. It wasn't machineries, it wasn't widgets, it wasn't, rocket ships or cars. It was ideas and people.
It's one of the things about America that made America great for a long time, even before the Industrial Revolution, was the idea that this idea of the demos, the democracy, and the Republican form of democracy, not Republican with the big R, with the little r,
Right.
meaning the republic, the things of the people. Those really do go back to Greece. Rome adopted them. Rome, the time of early Rome was a time when they followed the ideals of Greek thinkers in large part. The secondary language of Rome was Greek at its height of Rome. And there are so many of the great Roman writers and poets and thinkers, Cicero and others, who were completely linguistically understanding of Greek and wrote both Greek and Roman because they admired it so much, as did our forefathers. And I'm making a point here in a long way. Greece developed that too. They developed into that idea of the people and the debate and the importance of citizens. And when we say citizens, it did also include, to a degree, people that weren't Athenian, that came into Athens and were adopted as citizens. It was important to them to understand that they got together, as I recall from my history, with other city-states in Greece to oppose tyrants. And we once also, until recently, were that type of country that people look forward to go to our monuments, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and many other places. And I hope we get that back, because we're losing it. And there were at times, as I understand in Greek history, in Athenian history, where they lost it as well, where tyrants were able to overtake. And it's important to remember that that's always something that we have to look at and look forward to. And so as we go on, I want to ask you a couple more questions kind of about that.
Yeah.
So when you're traveling around, what are some of the other places, the highlights of where you're going to be? And I say this, I know, because somebody mentioned this to me when I told them that you were in Greece. People can get their maps out or go on their computer and get a map out. Maybe can take a look to see where you're going to be and where you're going to be progressing, and the relevance of those places, if any, to American society.
I'm going to go to that part, but first, to address what you were talking, the first part, Ron, you can't go very far in Athens today and still not see reverence for those ancient Greek heroes, from Pericles, who wrote their great death speech after the battle with Sparta.
Yeah.
You see it all over the place, even and now modern heroes of Greece. What you do not see, this is a really stark comparison, you do not see statues of traitors in Greece. In the second, I don't remember, Xerxes came here first, and his son, the Persians came, and we're gonna take out. Maybe I'm getting this backwards, but it was the Battle of Thermopylae. And that was where the Spartans, the 300, they were the point of the spear. They weren't just 300 against the 100,000 army of Persia. There was thousands of Greeks there. But the Persians were the first in line. And they withheld that little narrow, what was a narrow passageway between the sea and the rock walls at that time. And they gallantly did that until there was a traitor.
Thermopylae Pass, right?
Yes, and yeah. So now you look at it, the sea is way different and everything. But at the time, it was rather narrow, and that's where the Spartans fought. They were the point. So among them was a guy that, if you saw the movie 300, Ephialtes was his name. He betrayed his own countrymen. There is nobody in Greece today named Ephialtes. Nobody. But in the United States, we still name our children Stonewall.
Right. Or
And
Beauregard.
we still hang the Confederate flags, even though no technicality at all, they were traitorous to the United States Constitution and the United States of America in 1860. You can debate the reasons why all day long, and you can say that we can support that culture or we want to honor our culture. You know how you do that? Just eat collard greens.
Yeah.
You won't have to hang a flag. You don't have to celebrate what they celebrate. There's no statues of people who lost here. There are statues of people, again, not far from me, who were barbecued over a spit by the Turks. There are statues here in Greece, right not far from me, of Greek priests who stood up to the fascists of Nazi Germany, not Germans themselves, Nazism, the fascism. And there are statues of Greece that celebrate all kinds of heroic actions throughout our history, Greek history, American history, Western history, but none to traitors. And that to me is always, every time I come, I can easily contrast that with the United States, who remains confused as to what it really means to be, after all this time, a glorious country. I'm a proud United States American citizen, but I don't understand that. I do not.
Well, one of the problems is that we have directly looking us in the face today is the idea that people that revolted against America after the election in January of 2021, they've been let off. Their sentences have been commuted. They've been pardoned for attacking the Capitol and threatening to hang the Vice President of the United States, killing officers, threatening people, making the People's House of Representatives and the Senate, our representatives, run and hide for their lives. And we've got a guy in the presidency who started all of that and who was elected again and is now saying he's going to run for a third term, even though the Constitution prohibits it. And I think that the recollection of that, as you speak about it, to our historic origins about democracy and democratic government is important, because you're right, we shouldn't do that. And ultimately, historically in America, when there have been traitors, Aaron Burr, people like that, Benedict Arnold, they have been kicked to history's dustbin by Americans. But we somehow have this idea that it's okay and as long as you win. But I don't think the Greek democracy was like that. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about doing the right thing historically for the entire country or nation or city-state, as I've read it.
Yeah, the scars that are there, wide open, you can open a history book and see them. But the ancient Greek way, the methods of the Hellenes, as they're called, Hellenes, Rome didn't exactly copy. Rome embraced them. Rome took them back to Rome. Herod Atticus there's wonderful theater here. There's Hadrian's Arch here. The Romans came in and said, holy gosh, these guys are doing it right. We can learn here. Look at how they built these temples. Look at their archaeology. Their architecture. Look at their ways of thought. Look at their medicine. All this kind of stuff was happening here, and it was preserved by the Romans. Later, and its time is forgotten, because we study the Dark Ages in Western history. We study the plague and all the things that went wrong in Europe and England in the 1500s or whatever. But throughout, for 1,000 years, the Byzantine Empire preserved Eastern culture. So,
and the Romans honored it, in their architecture, with Ionic and Doric and Corinthian columns and all of that stuff.
Right.
The other thing the Romans honored was this, that you couldn't be a traitor and be a leader. And I forget the name of the Roman senator. The Romans were in a war against Carthage, one of two major wars, but they fought them all the time. Two of this one Roman senator's sons had joined forces with the Carthaginians, and they were there, and they were put on trial. And when they were tried and convicted, it was a death penalty offense. He didn't speak on behalf of his sons. He did not. He said they have to pay the price. Nobody can be a traitor against the people.
You might be thinking of Gaius Cassius Longinus. I just heard it Googled something. Who
No,
knows?
it may be.
But
It doesn't really. The name is
that doesn't matter.
unimportant. But I've read
Yeah.
that before, and I've also the other one about that is there was a Roman who was captured by Carthage. Again, a Roman known senator. Carthaginians sent him back with a offer of peace to the Roman Senate, and it would mean that he and the people that they had captured would be released. And he brought it back to the Roman Senate and threw it basically on the Senate floor and told them, don't do this, act on who we are, and turned around as his family watched him and walked away. And then, however they traveled back to Carthage, knowing that he was going to be tortured and killed, because there was no idea that you sold out the country for a political reason. And we're losing that in America now.
We are, and it's not just for political reasons. We're losing it out just so one side can win.
Right.
Everybody wants to win. We don't. I need to answer the second part of your question, but regarding just this part, when you're willing, if 70 million Americans are willing to forgive a person that committed every mortal sin and violated all the commandments and did everything wrong his whole life, and they just keep forgiving this guy for everything, nothing matters. Why even pretend? Nothing matters if our leadership is fraught with every ailment that they accuse their opponents of and citizens of, and it's festering within. No wonder people in America are so easily both distracted and so easily trained to think that nothing matters any longer other than winning. Remember that earlier on we talked about one of our at ancient Olympia here. The statues outside of the entry to the Olympic Stadium were the cheaters, the Zanes. We talked about.
Yeah,
that.
we did talk about that. Yeah,
the cheaters. And they were statued there, and their kids don't. I mean, those names are lost to history too, because nobody named their kid. If it was, Bill Frost, no kid was ever named Bill Frost again. That was the end of that, because his statue stood outside the stadium and was known to be a cheater and a great studio engineer, by the way, Steve.
Yeah.
But they were there to be. You walk by and said, "I never want to be like that," and we're the opposite. We're saying, cheat all you want, reward yourself all you want, just to give me my piece, and it's just wrong. Let's go into where we're going, Ron. Let's talk about that.
Well, okay. This is a question from one of the listeners, and do they have oranges in Greece?
Of course, yeah. And are you thinking of my big fat Greek wedding, maybe?
No.
No. Okay, yeah, sure. The word is, it's like ours, just a different word. Portocali means orange.
Portocali, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so I had some today, and boy, I'll tell you what, the juices here are out of sight. The vegetables are out of sight. God, you don't have to eat all day. It's like you have a Greek salad and you go, okay, that's what a tomato is supposed to taste like. I had a glass of frozen orange juice. It was just, it boggles me. We can't replicate that, but we don't. It's just unreal how good it is.
Well, knowing the answer to that question, this same person wanted to know, do they then have Cheetos in?
You know what? There's the sad embrace of Western culture in some areas of Greece. I've never seen a Cheeto, but I have seen numerous kinds of potato chips like Lay's, flavored with oregano, flavored with whatever else they can find. It's a Greek-themed flavor. But they're actually pretty good if you're going to have a potato chip. But I haven't seen a Cheeto.
All right, so then I
haven't seen the physical aura of a Cheeto as a public speaker and orange face kind of ogre, if that's what that person means.
Well, I think this is where this person was going now that I've read the whole question. And so the next question is, speaking of Cheetos, do they have orange leaders like Donnie Orange and RFK in Greece?
Did you see? I was here when he was speaking. There are people that sit on the beaches as a way of life here, and it takes its toll. But they've been sitting there their whole lives underneath. They're beating Mediterranean sun. And then you see RFK and you go, that guy hasn't been to a beach in how long? How in the hell did he turn his face into that? It's just like, it's an amazingly disruptive look to look at that guy and imagine that that's actually healthy. I can't imagine that it is.
Well, I think
It doesn't seem natural.
no, it doesn't, and neither does the color of our president of the United States. And so that gets to another question. How do you say liar, liar, face on fire in Greek?
Oh, I don't know the word for liar. I know the word for false, but I don't know.
All
And I
right.
know the word for fire, fotias, like face on fire. I don't know. I'd have to think
You
about
have
it
to
and
think about
construct.
that because we want to give the listeners some words to be able to use.
Well, here's one. Here's one. It's Rolo. We're going to Rhodes. After Athens, this group here goes to Rhodes.
Okay?
And Rhodes is it's a substantially sized Greek island. Most people have heard of Rhodes. It's not really well known as a travel destination in the United States. We always think of Santorini and Mykonos and a couple other islands. Rhodes is it has a fair share of American travel. It gets a lot of Europeans, and it's sort of like parts of it are, to me, a little bit Cancunish. There's inclusive hotels and stuff where we don't stay. We're staying in the center of Old Rhodes, but Rhodes has a long history, especially during the Crusades. There's a fabulous castle with the entryway to Rhodes that was built by, the Knights of not Columbus. Who were they? They were the Knights of something, something.
Not the Knights of
Exemplar.
Templar. The Knights of
Yeah.
Templar.
So you got to see this. It's a big old castle in the middle of this island. Well, right on the edge of the island. In ancient history, the Colossus of Rome was one
Right.
of the seven wonders of the world. The port is still there, and you can see imagery of what it may have looked like thousands of years ago. But the castle is pretty impressive, and it was from the Crusaders, who, of course, at the time thought that they knew better. They were going to go to the Muslim world and convert them to Christianity, and didn't turn out so well.
Well, I've got it's just who I am, and that is I have to push back on American present day historical renderings of the Crusades. Yes, the Crusades were bad on a lot of counts, but the Crusaders and the people that wanted the Crusades wanted to take back places that had been taken from them by Islam by force. And so it does two wrongs don't make a right. But we've gotten to a point in the United States and in Western Europe where we want to make it as though Islam always existed there, okay? In reality, Islam does exist there. It's an important aspect of that area of the world, meaning Palestine and Jerusalem and those areas. But it's also true that those areas were forcibly taken from Christians and Jews. And that's part of the reason we continue to fight these stupid battles, because over periods of time, there was no hegemony over those areas. There was an agreement among peoples to live together, to cohabitate together. And we've gotten away from that once again. So the Crusades are bad in that respect. But we can't undermine the idea when we're talking about that, and even when we're talking in relationship to Palestine today, that jihadist Islam is not good. And a lot of people have suffered because of that as well. That's my side lecture on that. But I
Well,
didn't.
Ron, you don't have to do a side lecture. I was at a bar on our rooftop patio here just a minute ago talking to George, the bartender. He said exactly that.
I
Okay,
mean,
the bartender.
yeah, I
So
mean,
he said, that's the way it is right now, and there's there's peaceable people in the world, and then there's others that manifest according to some kind of plan that overtaking other inhabitants of other countries and stuff. And he said basically what you said.
well, and I mean, I don't mean to say, I mean, I have a lot of Islamic brothers and sisters. I mean, literally people that I know and love. But I mean, we have to accept our history. And just as the Greeks have to accept their history, and we also can accept and adopt parts of it. But there's very few, if any, peoples in the world that have not conquered other peoples. And Islam did that starting in the 7th century. and did it through violence too. So anyway,
No two ways about it. And it's gone back and forth. And that's why the Crusaders went one way and the Islamists came the other way, why it's still continuing today. 100 years ago, Athens was 1/4 the size of what it is now. And then when after World War I and the Greeks fought on the side of the Allies, were promised by Great Britain to, continue to get their traditional homelands back. Remember that Constantinople was earlier named Istanbul.
right.
Istanbul now, then it was Constantinople, but before that it was Byzantium, and that was a Greek settlement. It was a Greek city. It was the capital of Greece. Greeks don't call it Istanbul. It's Istanbul. It's our city. That's what they call it. It's the capital of Greece. To this day, many Greeks in their hearts believe Constantinople or Istanbul, whatever. Who was that band that had those two songs? The words confused.
Oh yeah, that's a great song. It was yeah,
that one.
it was a parody song in the early 60s but I think it was originally written, and that's terrific. Yeah.
So anyway, it is still, it's the head of the Greek Orthodox Church is there still, even though there's no Greeks remaining because he booted them all out. Then what happened was they all came here and built this city really rapidly and haphazardly as a result of hundreds of thousands of Greeks being kicked out of Asia Minor. The Greek map at the time would have included almost all of Western Turkey as part of Greece. Now it doesn't. It's in the shores of the upper Aegean, and there's some scattering islands nearby that are Greek. But the Greeks have been pushed over left, right, in between. There's Venetian influence here, Genoan, Russian, English, German, U.S. The golf courses, right? So we left our imprint, but Greece has maintained a pretty steady rod in terms of like who they are. That's for sure. And they don't. It's not that they don't waver, but they remember, and they will not forget who they are and their people. To be Greek at one time didn't have a border necessarily. It was if you spoke the language, and if you spoke the language, you understood what it meant to be a Greek. And so that was kind of like, oh, you're like us. My grandfather, when he came from Crete, it was under Turkish dominion still. It was occupied and kind of still run by the Turks for another 7 years after he got here to the United States. And he would always say, he was no fan of the Turks then. And I think things have gotten much better now. But at the time, no, the scars were too real. He'd say, no, they're no Christiani. They're barbarians. That's how we'd say it.
Yeah.
And barbarian, when you look it up, it doesn't mean like, oh, they don't brush their teeth. It's because of the way they spoke. They couldn't speak Greek. That's the origins of it. They couldn't, and that was what he would say.
Yeah.
So, I'm not too sure where all this is taking us and all that today, but I can happily say or proudly say, if America heals and so on, it's not going to be because we suddenly wake up and throw away the cheating man's golf score. That ain't going to change anything. Somewhere in America, something will happen that ignites the inner fire that says there are things of value that we forgot how to cherish. Unfortunately, and this is another conversation today, unfortunately, that usually ignition is in the form of somebody taking a position of martyrdom and fighting back, and there's a rally cry, and people go, yeah.
And you said that before, and I think there's truth to it, but I have a little bit different take, and we've got here, I didn't know that we would. This morning, I read every morning from a book by a man named Thomas Merton. I mentioned him before, a monk. And this is what, in this book I have, this is the reading for September 9th. I'll skip the first part when he talks about the beauty of the day and the rain that he has been in. He is in Kentucky. He's at a monastery, but he's living alone by himself. And he's thinking about life. And he says, the importance of being able to rethink thoughts that were fundamental to men of other ages or are fundamental to men in other countries. For me, especially contemporary Latin America, Greek patristic period, Mount Athos, Confucian China, the Tang dynasty, pre-Socratic Greece. I despair of ever beginning to know and understand, to communicate with these paths and these distances, yet a sense of obligation to do so, to live them and combine them in myself, to absorb, to digest, to remember, memoria, have not yet begun. How will I ever begin to appreciate their problems, reformulate the questions they tried to answer? Is it even necessary? Is it sane? For me, it is an expression of love for man and for God, an expression without which my contemplative life would be useless, and to share this with my contemporary. So Merton is valuing, this was written in 1960, September of 1960. Merton is valuing in large part what you're doing. You are taking people back in time to contemplate those things he is discussing, because we can learn from the genius and even the failures of past peoples who we built on, like the Romans did, like the Roman Empire did, like England did, like France did, and so many other places, including Latin America, which he mentions there, which we learn more about. But you're taking us a little bit today and the people that you're with back to really, which is one of those cradles, the cradles of what will become the Western civilization. And I think it's just cool that you're doing it.
Well, thank you. That's really, really nice. And what you said, when you were reading Merton, and what you said afterward, how he contemplated it and what it all means and the values of it, I was thinking, and I'm guilty when I say this, too many Americans are not quick to forget, will have never have taken the time to learn about what you just spoke about and have it have any meaning with them. We are now a culture, and maybe all cultures in the world, many are, but at the end of the day, for 2,500 years, every big, successful, influential cultures in the world have somehow traced something back to the hill that's less than a half a mile from where I'm sitting right now, to the top of the Acropolis and where it began, and the agoras where the words were spoken, and the heroes were made, and somehow it brings that societal like DNA that we all have, the decency at the end of the day of commonality, of citizenship and shared values, brings it to the fore. I can walk right now and see somebody in 10 minutes from every planet on Earth. Seriously.
No, I think that's right. And I think maybe that's a good place for us to end today, Johnny. And I hope you have a great trip. And next week we'll have some other questions for you. Talk about where you're going.
Yeah, let me just finish. Remember, way back you did ask where we're going. I'll just finish that and then ask you a question. So the first trip, we've been all over Greece, by the way. There's a little corner that we've missed that we'll do one of our trips one day in northern Greece. But over the years, we've hit it all. I mean, there's over and over and over. It's just a compelling and great experience. So on this trip after Rhodes, by the way, it was the Knights I sent you, the Knights of the Grand Master, Palace of the Grand Master. Yeah, the Knights of St. John, who they were that built the castle in Rhodes. Okay. We leave that for an island called Karpathos. Karpathos isn't very well known. It's in the Dodecanese chain. It means 12 islands. So not well known, but it's starting to catch up in terms of a place to visit. So we're going to go there. I've never been, but we're going to spend 11 days on Crete. Crete is a special place for a lot of people, particularly in Salt Lake. There's just thousands of Salt Lakers that have got some kind of Cretan lineage, and I'm one of them. So, we will see the places. Let me give you a quick story on Crete. A few years ago, we came here. When we get on the bus, sometimes I don't tour lead, but I'll get on the microphone, have a little contest,
No.
And talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking bullshit. So this year, we were driving past a place. We're going to visit this year, but we drove past, and I talked about different things in Crete, like where 4,000 German kids are buried, because that's where they met their end, fighting, for Hitler for no reason, but no real good reason. Before that, the Cretans were occupied for 400 years by the Turks, and most of Greece was under there until the revolution, 1821, when they fought back and started to peel away, but not at Crete. In Arcadi, that's the name of the town, the whole Greek village went inside of a monastery, their church. And there's debate on to what happened next, but the legend is that they blew themselves up. The fact is that 900 of them died. Boom. Rather than succumb to the Turkish way, which included taking kids away and making janissaries, taking the Cretans away, train them in the Turkish ways and have them fight against their own people. So as we're talking about this, a woman came up one day and she said, God, I'm sure glad you told that story. And some people, I never knew how people will respond. And I go, well, I don't know much about it. I was just chattering. She goes, no, it meant a lot because I was born in Crete. And in my presence, when I was under 1 year old, Nazi soldiers came into our house and murdered my father. One held him on one arm, another with the other arm, and the third one put a knife through him in front of my mother, in front of my brothers and sisters. She lives in Salt Lake. You would know the name if I told it. I'm not going to. But I looked at her and I just was stunned. We're only one generation away from that kind of travesty, that people would treat people like that. It's only 80 years before. And it is just unreal that is not that far away. That's the age of some people's parents in the city, their brothers and sisters, that people would treat people that way and murder a man in front of his family. And what was the cause for that? Maybe he spoke a different language. That's something new in our world today. You can just go grab anybody for speaking Spanish, although I don't think that the case you would know more about on a legal basis, the one that was just through the Supreme Court about protecting people of different language or a person of different color, ethnicity, way of life. We're heading to that sort of really, really nasty reality. And I'm not saying this as a warning path. I'm just saying that it's happened over and over and over in history.
Well, you should be saying it as a warning path. We have a place called Alligator Alley. We have a president who's been told by the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago, we don't want ICE in our streets doing what they've been doing in other places. And he's basically told them to F off. We have people like Mike Lee and Hegseth who want to have a Department of War and then release troops at the behest of the president, not with a request from a governor of a state, which is required. Even Megyn Kelly gets that. She's said the last couple days, Trump can't use National Guard troops without a request from a governor. Even she gets that. And she says if he does it, I'm going to speak out against it. I hate to be speaking on behalf of Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. Why should you be afraid of that? Speak out against
I'm a former Chicago resident. It brought me tremendous joy to see millions of people on the streets of Chicago, saying no.
So, to your point, which is a great one, is no, it isn't too far from that, from people being killed, and there have been people killed in arrests. So that's what the beauty of history is. It can tell us that even in great places, stuff like that can happen. I'll give you the last word.
Here it is. It's really a summary of the great times we have here, Ron. I'll be gone for a while, and I hope that the internet improves wherever we call in next or do it. But here's the deal. We've been to Greece a lot. We're going to come to Greece again next year. We want to add Italy and or Croatia, and we would love to have a host that knows a little bit about Italian history, Italy history, Roman history, and Croatian history. And if you happen to know one and their name either ends in a vowel or an itch, would you happen to know a person like that?
I'll try to find one. I will.
Look in the mirror.
I'll try to find. Okay.
Now look in the mirror.
Okay. All right. I try not to do that very often these days.
I don't blame you there. But, Ron, what do you think? The Bingham Boys on parade.
I think it's a great idea. I don't think that I mean, I would go. I don't know that I would be the perfect host, but I think it's a great idea. I mean, there's a commonality of Mediterranean thought and attitudes in the Croats, the Hrvatski, and the Italians, particularly in the Adriatic Sea area. I think it would be fun. I would love to go, but I don't know I would be the one to lead it
Well-
because my Croatian is not that great. Sum total of about 40 words, and 38 of them are bad words. And my Italian is okay, but it's not good enough to monitor around. But we'll give it some thought. I think that might be fun.
Think about it, because you don't have to do anything except espouse wisdom. That's all you got to do.
Ah, well, or be full of crap. Okay,
They're the same thing sometimes. But Ron, you would be able. People would just stand back and say, "There he is, my distant cousin. I share his DNA. We're with him."
All right. Okay.
You know, Greece and Italian, una faccia, una razza.
Yeah, there are a lot of
That-
similarities.
One face, one race.
Yep.
So, let's do it.
Okay.
By the way, I mentioned before, I did a DNA test. All my grandparents were through lineages of how you do them. On my dad's side, their mother carried a lot of mitochondrial DNA that's pretty dominant in southern Italy. And southern Italy was I'm going to get my pronunciations wrong. Magna Graecia or Magna Graecia. It was southern.
Magna
it was Greek.
Greca. Magna Greca.
Magna Greca. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're cousins.
Well,
The whole world is cousins if you figure it out.
Yeah,
I'm
well-
related to Bill Frost.
Well, you are. We both are. He's kind of our little brother that we pick on.
Yeah, I don't pick on him. I learned a long time ago not that, because that some bitch, he's got the sharpest pen in the city. When he wants to get even, he's not shy, and he'll stab you, and you won't even know you're getting stabbed. But everybody will know that person has been stabbed and laugh like hell about it. I can name some of his victims. Some of them work for us.
All right. John, be safe. All right.
All right, we will.
Peace and love, brother.
Ron.
And peace to love to everybody else out there. God bless you all.
What kind of trick would you want me to bring back, you guys?
I want an icon, or I want a small one.
Give me a saint name. Give me a saint name.
St. John. I mean, John of Patmos is allegedly the reason that I bear the name Yengich. It means son of John. And allegedly, somebody in my family was a follower of John of Patmos a long time ago.
Been in his cave.
Yeah.
We did that a few years ago. All right, you got it. I'm going to find St. William, if there is such a thing.
There's a St. William.
St. Bill.
St. Bill. What is Bill in none of this
Vasily.
is good. None of this.
Vasily.
Okay.
We call Bill's Vasily, so
Yeah.
Basil.
Yeah, there's a St. Basil. There are a number of those too.
It can spit from here to the Athens Cathedral, and all along it's a tourist trap, but it's also an area where Orthodox churches and religions all over the world have their little shops and bishops and stuff going there. So it'll be really easy to find you guys some icons.
And yeah, an icon or even a holy card. I've got some Orthodox holy cards. I love them.
All right.
All right,
You got
Johnny. Be safe, huh?
it. Bye. Yes, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.